What is up, guys? It's Modern Warfare here, and welcome back to Coding Tutorials, Episode 1, Part 2. So we're just going to basically continue from where we left off, and in this part we're going to be looking at error handling, improving our mod button and our connect button, and finally building the project and getting it all finished so that you can release your tool to the public when you're ready. So let's just continue from where we left off. That's what we want. Okay, now how can we improve upon the message box X1, this button here that actually sets the values? Now, before we do that, I should show you the other way to set this. So we have to use byte arrays a lot if we're not using XDevKit++. If you are using XDevKit++, then we can write this all on one line. I find it quicker and easier to write it this way. Once you get your head around what you have to type in. Basically, you have to put in XRPC dot, and then it will be dot xbcon dot debug target dot write, and then what we're writing is actually a uint32. That's what the offset is. So the offset's a uint32, so we copy the offset. We always have to give it the address first, the offset. So we paste in our address, and then we do comma our values, which is, for here we wanted 9999, and that is 05FFFFFF. So I can just say 0x05FFFFFF. For me, that is quicker to type than making a byte array first and then writing the byte array on another line. You can just set it with XDevKit++ with just one line of code, and that should work just the same. But still, what's wrong with this? Well, we click max rings, it gives us max rings. Obviously we could make another button that puts the rings back to 0, or maybe a button that, or maybe make this a toggleable button. You click it once, it gives you 999, you click it again, it puts it back to 0. I think a better way to do this would be to let the user type a number, and then they click a button and it sends that number to the console and sets that as their rings. So if they type in 50,000, they click the button, and the game changes to 50,000 rings. That would be better. The user can then type in whatever number they want. So let's do that. So we go into here, we move this max rings button along. We need to add in from the toolbox a text box. So in .NET bar we've got text box X. We'll drag that on, and I'll drag that under here. Move this down a little bit. And I'll make this text box a little bit bigger. So if I scroll up to the font, I'll change this to, let's see, I've got lots of fonts on here. Let's change it to Segio UI. And I'll increase the size to 9, just to make the box a little bit bigger. And then I'll resize this box to kind of match the text box. And then in the text box, I can also add watermark text. So if I scroll down to the bottom, we've got watermark text. In here, I can enter a message like enter amount of rings. Enter amount of rings. So nice little message for the user so they know what to type in there. And change this from max rings to set rings now. And instead of the rings here, I will change this to the tick icon because you're setting it. Yeah, we can even add a watermark image as well. So let's put the rings icon in for the watermark image. So we've got enter amount of rings. That doesn't look too great. Maybe if I add a space at the start. Looks too close to the text. That'll do. So we've got enter amount of rings and set rings. So somebody types in what they want and clicks the button and it sends that to the console. So the way we do this, first of all, we'll rename textbox X1 to user input rings or something. And if we double click the set rings button, and we're going to take out this and going to change it so that we accept the user, whatever the user types, it will send that to the console. We have to do a bunch of conversions here because we're writing an int32. What somebody's going to be typing in here is an integer, a normal number. And when it writes it to the console, it has to convert that into an unsigned integer because that's what the data is in memory. So we have to do some convert.to's in here. So we type in XRPC xbcon.debugtarget.write uint30. Well, in fact, in this case, what we're doing is we're writing an int32. So we say we're going to write an integer value, a normal integer value. So it's just a int32. But the offset, the address in memory, is a uint32. So if we just pasted it in, it wouldn't recognize it. So what we have to do is we have to say convert.to uint32 and then paste in our offset because it's an unassigned integer, and it'll recognize that. And then we need to basically convert it back to an integer 32 for the value, because the value that somebody's entering is a normal number. So we say convert.to uint int32, this time a normal integer, and then the text box, which I called user input rings dot text. And now what that's going to do is basically write whatever the person types into this address as a uint32. So it's going to take our int32 value, it's going to convert it to a uint32 value and write it to this address. And we also always have to add the dot text at the end, because it's not just the user input rings, it's the text that somebody types in that we need to write. So we always have to put dot text at the end. Again, there's multiple ways of writing this. This is just one way you can do it on one line, and that should work. So let's go ahead and give this a try. So we'll open up our game. I'm paused because my controller disconnected. I have to unpause, otherwise it won't refresh the rings. For some reason this game seems to not understand the A button. There we go. Right, so we can click connect and it should give us our connection successful message. And then if I type in 0 rings, set rings, and it's set to 0. Then what I can do is I can change this to, say, 9,000 or 90,000 rings. Set rings, sets it to 90,000 rings. You can set it to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9s. And that should set it to maxed rings again. So now the user can enter whatever number they want and it will send it to the console. Okay, so we're pretty much done. Another thing that we could do just to add something, sometimes this can be distracting. You don't want to do this for everything, but for user inputs, you might want to add a message box just to say something like rings set successfully. It depends. You might not want to do this, add a message box, because sometimes it can be annoying depending on what, it really depends on what the mod is. But now when somebody types in something and they click set rings, it tells you that it successfully sent that to the console. Okay, so now what can we do? Well, this is kind of good enough, but again, there's more that we could do to fix this or make this better. Let me just try and sort of reorganize this. It's just a very small tool. So what can we do here? So what we can do, we've got set rings. There's still a couple of problems. Now the main problem that we have right now is that it's very easy to break this. If I start this up and I just set rings without connecting to the console first, it's just going to crash the application. Not very good. And even if I do connect to the console, but then instead of entering a number, I enter a bunch of text and then click set rings, again it's going to crash. So you could just say, well, you know, if users are that stupid to enter text instead of numbers, then it serves them right, the program's going to crash. Well, yeah, that's not kind of the way you should be looking at it. You should be trying to solve this and stopping people from accidentally crashing your application. So one way, there's a couple of things we need to do here, and that is error handling. So how can we make this better and stop it from crashing? Well, one thing, to stop people from setting the rings before they've even connected to the tool, you just disable the rings button. Disable all the mod buttons in your tool. So if I come up near the top where we've got enabled and I set this to false, what that's going to do is set the button to false, disabling the button so that you cannot click it. And then we'll just re-enable the button once we've connected successfully to the console. So when we connect successfully to the console, we'll say, what did I call it? Rings button. Rings button.enabled equals true. So there's a little bit of error handling right there. Now we cannot accidentally send anything to the console and screw it up. We have to connect first, and only when the connection is successful is the button available to be clicked. But again, if I don't enter anything in here or enter a bunch of text, it's still going to crash. So how do we sort that out? So in this case, what we need to do, this is just a quick way. There's other ways we could do it. We could make it so that you have to enter a value and you make it so it won't accept any text. But a quick way to do it is just say try this. Rather than do this, we're telling it to try. So we say try this right here. And then if it fails to do that, we can catch the exception. We can say catch exception CE, and then maybe give a message box that says, so rather than crashing the application, it will give a message box that just says maybe please enter a number value. And we'll just change this maybe to a warning. So we'll give it the title warning, and we'll change the icon to a warning icon on the message box. So now we shouldn't crash it, even if we enter random values. First we have to connect, otherwise we can't set the rings. And then if I enter random text instead of entering a proper number, instead of crashing the whole app, it just says please enter a number value. So the app is no longer crashing, and then we know that we need to enter a number value now. So we enter a number value, and it sets it successfully onto the console. So that's it. Again, another problem is the connect button. Now I would show you this in neighborhood, but neighborhood is always really awkward for me. So hopefully this is not going to screw things up. If I delete the console and then try and connect, now it's still going to connect because it's found it, but if I restart the app and now try and connect, it's just going to crash. Now again, you would think we've already got error handling in here. We've already said it should say connection failed if XRPC connection failed. However, it's not even finding the console in the first place because I've removed it from the neighborhood. I've removed it from neighborhood, so it can't find the console to begin with. So that's an XBDM problem, an XDevKit problem. So this error handling is not going to catch that. So again, another quick way around that is just to tell it to try to do this. And then again, if you fail, catch the exception. And we'll give another message box, and this message box will say, we could say XBDM connection failed or neighborhood connection failed. Let's just say XBDM connection failed. So if the XRPC connection fails because they don't have the XRPC plugin installed in Dash Launch, it will give this message and say your XRPC connection failed. But if they don't have the connection to neighborhood or they don't have the XBDM plugin installed, then it will say XBDM connection failed. So let's give this one a try now. So connect, XBDM connection failed. And we've got our little error icon there. And if I reconnect on neighborhood, fingers crossed it will let me reconnect on neighborhood, because my neighborhood's very awkward and temperamental. Damn it. Let me try the IP address. My neighborhood just doesn't like me. Luckily that one worked. Okay, so now we'll try this. Connection successful. So there we go, that's a bit of error handling in there. So now people shouldn't be able to deliberately crash the application or just do it by mistake by entering a stupid value or any of that stuff. So yeah, I think that will probably do for our basic application here. Now another thing, people are able to resize this. If I run this, and they'll completely screw up the formatting. They can just do this and kind of screw it up. So we'll sort that out as well. We can scroll down and we're going to look for something called the form border style and change it to fixed single. And that should stop people from being able to resize it. Yep, they cannot resize it. Okay, so now we're just on to the finishing touches essentially. Let's add an icon for our tool rather than that default one. So I'm going to select icon, select my little Sonic icon that I found. It's on our icon archive. And icons for the actual form need to be a .ico file. They cannot be a PNG. They need to be .ico. But you can easily hop on Google and do a search for convertico.com. So if you head to convertico.com, you can just drag a PNG file in here and then download it as an ICO. And then you can add your ICO file into the form. So we've now got a little icon. But when we build this as a standalone application, it will not have the icon. So we need to sort that out. So again, all we do is we select the actual form, we right click, or select the actual project, right click and go to properties. And what we can do here, we can change the assembly name. I'm going to change that to Sonic Mod Tool with spaces. And the icon, the default icon, we'll select our Sonic icon. So we select our icon, click open. It's added the icon, so now when we build this, our final application will have the icon as well. You can also select the framework if you're wanting the program to run on older operating systems like Windows XP. Then you might want to select Net Framework 3 or 3.5. I'm just going to select 4.5. I don't really care about older operating systems for this tool. It's just an example tool. Okay, just adding another quick thing in here that I forgot to mention. Another thing that kind of annoys me about Visual Studio is the fact that when you run it, you can see that we've got these weird dotted lines that run around the inside border of the buttons. I have no idea why that's even a thing. I don't know what the point of it is, and there probably is a legitimate reason for it, but why does it have to be enabled by default? So you should really do this when you first create your button. That way when you copy and paste it, you won't have to do it for every single button because it will already be done. But what you want to go ahead and do is select all the buttons in your tool that have this annoying dotted line enabled, and you're going to scroll up into the properties and look for something called focus cues enabled, and it's set to true by default, which I don't know why. I wish it was set to false by default, but anyway, change it to false and that'll fix that so that now when you run it, you no longer have those dotted lines on the inside of your buttons. And that should do us. So all we need to do now is click build, rebuild solution, and when it's finished you can right click on the project and open folder in File Explorer, click bin, debug, and there's our tool now. That's just a standalone application that we can run, and it should work all the same. Ring set successfully. Check back on our app, on our game, and it's set. So there we go. Now let's say we were wanting to release this and actually release our tool to the public. We can create a new folder. I'm going to call this Sonic Mod Tool, and we can take our mod tool, we can drag and drop it or copy it into this folder, and this will still work fine for me. However, for people who don't have any of the references that you added, if you remember, we had to add XDevKit and we had to add .NET Bar. This will not run for people who don't have .NET Bar or don't have XDevKit on their computers. If they don't have those DLL files on their computers, then they're not going to be able to run your application. So you need to include those with your download for your application. So if I include XDevKit in with the app, and I also include .NET Bar, which is located in C Program Files 86, and then .NET Bar for Windows Forms, and then dev components.NET Bar 2.dll. If I copy that DLL file, paste it in with my application, and now that should work on anybody's computer. So as long as they have .NET Framework installed, this should run fine. Even if they don't have dev components.NET Bar or XDevKit, it will still work. And we can right click and add this to a zip archive. and now I could post this on a forum or send this to somebody, and they should be able to use the tool that you have created. So that's it. That is how we make our mod tool for our Xbox 360. We've made our own little RTE tool for the offset that we found ourselves on that game. So yeah, if you liked this video or you found the information useful, I know it was a long video, 2 parts, but what can you do? Coding tutorials take time. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, comment if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys in the next video.